This is IAQ Radio, Indoor Air Quality Radio, the voice of the indoor air quality industry, with your hosts, Radio Joe Hughes and the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. And now, Radio Joe Hughes.
IAQ Radio Association sponsors are IICRC, the Institute for Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification at iicrc.org. The Restoration Industry Association, RIA, at restorationindustry.org. The Environmental Information Association, EIA, at eia-usa.org. IAQ Radio industry sponsors are Particles Plus at particlesplus.com, BioPlanet at byoplanet.com, Tramex Meters at tramexmeters.com.
And now you can win a cool prize. It's time for the IAQ Radio Trivia question. Be the first to correctly answer. Simply email your answer to czlotnick at cs.com. Or if listening live, just text your answer from your computer. And now, here's the Z-Man.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry to report that no one identified F.T. Gucker as the person commonly acknowledged as the inventor of the first light scattering device. Here's today's IAQ Radio trivia question. In what year was the term AI coined? Back to you, Joe.
Okay, Implement 4's Chief Revenue Officer, Jenny Andrawis, has over 16 years in the restoration industry and 20 years as a marketing executive. Prior to leading the revenue generation initiatives at Implement 4, Jenny has held Chief Revenue Officer, Marketing Leadership, Customer Success, and Sales Establishment roles within the restoration companies, ranging from $20 million to over $800 million. Welcome, Jenny. Great to have you on the show.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Z-Man. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for being a guest.
Let's start out with a little bit on who is Implement 4 and what exactly do y'all do?
Yep, absolutely. So Implement 4 is, we are a national restoration and remediation industry partner. And our line of services is basically to help restorers of many different sizes with their marketing, their operations, and their talent acquisition strategies.
How long has Implement 4 been around now?
So we are a relatively young company. We've been around for a little over a year.
Okay, and I'm curious, what made you and your partners? I think you have a partnership there. What made you decide to go into this area?
So I think we kind of, the three of us are all restoration veterans, if you may. Ethan's been in restoration on the operations side of things. Dan has been on the human talent, the recruiting side of things. And then, as you just mentioned, I was all things sales, marketing, and customer experience. And we identified a need in the marketplace for companies such as Implement 4 to come in and help restorers grow and get to that next level. And so we put our three heads together and our efforts together and created Implement 4.
And how have things gone so far? It's been a year.
It's been amazing. It's been a wonderful journey. We are working with folks that we have, great relationships with throughout the years in the industry, as well as meeting new restorers. And I think that's really what makes us tick, is to work with folks that have just started restoration companies and they're trying to get to that next level. And, they come to us for sales help, for operational help, or just to find great talent. And it's just been a wonderful ride thus far.
You've got several buckets that you kind of deal with. One we want to talk about today is AI, and then the other one is new technology. And you also do a lot of the marketing. But let's start with AI, and because it's such a huge topic these days, everybody's talking about AI, and in fact we're being summarized right now by AI. I haven't been terribly impressed with it, but it's been okay. I mean, and in other areas, I have been very impressed with AI. If you could tell us let's start with what is AI? If you could explain it for like a senior citizen like myself and Cliff here, uh, we would appreciate that.
Absolutely. So AI is, we tend to think of it as a relatively new thing. Um, the term AI, which stands for artificial intelligence, of course, that was coined back in 1956 in Dartmouth, in a Dartmouth college. So, we think of it as, ultra new, and it's really been around since the late 50s. But AI is basically, think of it as you take a very smart computer program and make it be able to learn and solve problems just like a human, but faster and with more accuracy. So historically, we've always kind of gave instructions to our computer, do this, add this, delete this, copy this, paste this, compute this, where now AI is like teaching a computer to think on its own instead of just following instructions. So AI can now figure things out. It can learn from its own mistakes, which is super cool. It can even make predictions. It's like a really smart student who can study, and because they study, they get better and they learn faster. Um, and then for our senior citizens out there, AI is already embedded in probably things they use every day, knowingly or unknowingly. Think of Siri on your phone. That's
Okay.
AI. Think of Alexa that sits on your countertop in the kitchen. That's AI. You can help. They can help us set reminders. They can play our favorite music. They can answer questions. What's the weather today? So AI is really embedded in so many things around us, and in processes that we see, but also in processes that we don't even know, AI is kind of running in the background.
Why, since you say it's been around since the 50s, and then I'm sure in the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. And then Siri came around, I think, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I'm losing track of time anymore here. Why is there so much spotlight on AI today when it's been around as long as you say?
Because I think it's kind of revolutionizing how we work as humans. I know, as it relates to me and marketing, AI is really revolutionizing how we market. There's a lot of repetitive tasks in my field, like social media scheduling and setting up email campaigns and data entry. So when AI automates a lot of this type of function, it then frees me up to more of the strategic thinking, big picture thinking and planning. Also, AI really helps with understanding data and putting it together in buckets and making sense out of it. And so it analyzes customer data to personalize my marketing messages and offers to each individual group. I use a lot of constant contact, as you know, Joe,
Yep.
and that's a great example of how they are starting to integrate AI so that my email campaigns are a lot more targeted and I can increase my engagement. Um, and then finally, great marketing and great customer experience always go hand in hand. And so, most websites now you log in and you see these AI powered chatbots and virtual assistants, and they can provide customer service and customer support and answer questions and help you troubleshoot 24/7, 365, which is super important in our, restoration and remediation industry.
Cliff,
No, if I could, what you just said, I've had to engage with AI, unfortunately, on a number of occasions. You're exactly right. It keeps trying and trying, and the things it doesn't understand is get me a human or representative, please, or whatever. It just seems to go around in circles and circles and circles. And if I didn't need to talk to somebody, in all honesty, I would just cut it off at the pass. But it's just companies are relying upon it, and I'm sure in some situations it really, really helps, but in other situations it's really, really frustrating. And if it's an emergency and you need something, it can be just really, really, really frustrating. And my situation, I was trying to, my American Express card was hacked, and it was just unbelievable. So I'm trying to deal with American Express and explain what's going on and so on and so forth. And it just took me around and around and around in circles. So I'm not sure how you get around that or whether you get any feedback back, Jenny, but that kind of struck a nerve.
Yeah, they're definitely getting a lot smarter, Cliff, so much so that, they now have taught AI or AI has taught itself to give entire classes and webinars where they're interacting with the students. And in the same fashion, we're seeing questions in our chat room right now. Um, the AI instructor is smart enough to take that question, understand it, and formulate a response. So they definitely are getting smarter. Also, keep in mind, there's different types of AI. There's, the free tools exist, but, the more sophisticated tools come at a pretty penny. And so, there's subscription-based, monthly or annual, there are free tools, there are highly customized AI functions. And so I think the ones where we sometimes feel very frustrated with and we get stuck in a rut could be earlier versions, could not have gone through that, the growth. And I think there's a lot of companies that rely on AI, and there's many, many successful applications of AI. Um, and in your case where you're asking it, operator, or help desk, I've been there. I know the frustration, but it's also these days not just used for commands, but in a marketing sense, sometimes you can't just wake up and be creative, right? You can't wake up and write a great first draft of a blog post or, um, come up with great design. And so AI is now like stepping in to help us with our creative slumps, which is really interesting. And they have a lot of AI creative tools that help with content creation. They can help generate ideas, and then you build on that. They can help to write drafts. It can create graphics. It's really interesting to see how AI is now trying to wear that creative hat. And in a marketing field, we welcome that. It's great to help us with our creativity every now and then.
What do disaster restoration companies use AI for?
So it's really interesting. Disaster restoration companies, or at least the ones that want to set themselves apart, try to integrate a lot of technology into their, operational processes. And so in restoration, we deal with a lot of unpredictable situations, when the next storm hits, where the next tornado is going to be, how large a loss is it going to be. And so we've seen smart restoration companies use AI in some really creative and efficient ways. Um, for example, AI can help in faster damage assessment. So AI tools can actually analyze a photo or a video of damage to a facility and then quickly run an estimate to the extent of the problem that it's seeing more quickly and accurately than a human could. Also, sometimes there's a lot of devastation where our restoration teams can't gain access to some facilities. And so if the cameras are already in place, that really helps with faster damage assessment. AI can assess water damage, fire damage, just by looking at a photo or a video, which is absolutely amazing. And that, speeds up the initial assessment process and it generates those estimates faster. Um, so that's one way we've seen it be used. Another way is better customer service. So again, we talk about those chat bots where they know where to send the call. So with national companies, they may have 65, branches across the country. And so to get you to the right person to respond to your disaster is very critical. There's a company out there, or there's a tool out there called Connex AI, and it's a virtual AI voice agent. And we've seen restoration companies run call centers entirely on this AI platform, which helps because, as you know, we need to take calls, 24/7, 365. And then we also saw restoration companies optimize their resource allocation using AI. And so AI can help determine the best and the most efficient way to deploy our crews, our equipment to different jobs sites. We can even take it a step further and have the AI tools help us with scheduling of these teams internally, right? And then dispatching them out. And it could be depending on what's the most urgent job, where does a team go first? Where are we allocating these 10 DQs? So it could be based on urgency. It can be based on geographic location. So, if some disaster hits a certain city or county, then AI knows to deploy and prioritize teams and vehicles and equipment there. And it can also be on the type of loss, right? So like think of, let's say if the project scope includes hazardous waste cleanup, then maybe AI understands, okay, who on the restoration team is a HAZWOPer, right? So deploy those guys and gals, and who has their WRTs, and who has 5 years of, responding to, I don't know, fire losses. So depending on their certs and the teams, AI can understand how to optimize that response team and say these are the right people to respond to that certain loss.
Jenny, let me back up just a second because there is free AI like Chat GPT, and then there are programs, I guess, that are more robust, let's say, that you pay for. It sounds like a lot of what you're talking about just now is not what I'm going to get from Chat GTP. I don't think it's going to take a photo and give me that. So if you could kind of just let our audience know what different like levels of are available, like the free Chat GTP, what can it do? Then what other programs are out there that may be more specific to restoration or construction work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing about AI is it's kind of leveling that playing field, Joe, so that, you know, smaller restoration companies can, if they start employing some of these newer technology AI tools, they can actually compete with, the larger restoration companies. So it kind of is doing the natural leveling of the playing field. The same way with the launch of like websites, right? So a small business can compete the same way some of these larger businesses are, just because we're all now everyone has a website and you're using that to promote your services and products. Um, so yes, larger companies obviously have more resources and dollars to invest in, customized and cutting edge AI systems. But there are free opportunities for the smaller restoration businesses. Um, and every day they're becoming more accessible. Um, and there are free tools. There are subscription-based tools where you pay monthly or annual. There are usage-based tools where you're only charged for the amount of data that you're processing or the number of API calls, which is fancy for, the number of asks you're making of the API tool. Um, but yeah, anytime a company's trying to like custom develop something, the cost could be significant.
What kind of costs are we looking at? I mean, a small company that wants to get better than just Chat GPT, they want to go up to the next level. Are they looking at, or better yet, what would you recommend since you work with these companies? Like what percentage of their income should they spend on AI?
So so I wouldn't recommend that they try to create their own AI platforms. In working with the tools that they work with every day. So think of, the different software tools our restoration companies are already using. Think of PSA Proven, think of Xactimate. As it relates to marketing, think of social media like Hootsuite platforms, think of Constant Contact. All these tools are already embedding AI into their processes. So by you using these tools, you have access to the latest and greatest AI through, their software functions. So, I'm not when I work with companies, I'm not saying go out and find an AI developer and create your own, piece of software or code. It's already happening for us, as we use Constant Contact for email campaigns. Constant Contact is engaging with AI developers to bring that to our email campaigns.
So we're already using AI, but maybe don't know it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think um, definitely we are using AI in so many different features and functions, even in our daily life, and we don't even know it.
Okay, so that's kind of like the free end of things. Now, if I had a company that wanted to build an app that was based on my company, specific to my company, am I looking at, tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or
It depends what you're looking to build. I would say it definitely starts in the tens of thousands, and then, sky's the limit with that.
okay, interesting. Cliff?
One of the things that I've heard about is that, the AI takes a tremendous amount of electricity in order to use it and so on and so forth. And will AI work on just any computer, or we're going to need to get more powerful computers in order to use it? Will it work with regular software that we already have on our computers, for, handling photos and documents and preparing them and so on and so forth? Or do we need to get, different programs? Are there going to be smarter computers, or are there already smarter computers? And this whole thing about electricity, does that mean your battery's going to go out sooner and that sort of thing, or we're going to have to run our equipment on 220 versus 110? Or talk about this electrical requirement, because I just
Yeah.
hear a lot about it.
So I think all those things you mentioned, and I'm not an IT expert, but all those things you mentioned are more on the development side of AI. But we as users, keep in mind AI is cloud-based. These AI services that we use every day, those are cloud-based. And so that really reduces any kind of hardware requirements that you and I are going to need, Cliff. So, like, I haven't gone out and bought a special kind of laptop so that I can use AI in my email marketing or in my social media marketing or in my creative content creation. I didn't need a special tool for that because, again, it is cloud based. And so I think from a user standpoint, you're not going to need a special kind of device to have access to AI.
And Jenny, lately there's been this DeepSeek AI app that's in the news a lot, that came from China, and we don't know whether it was a whole lot less expensive to develop than what they're talking about because they're putting billions of dollars into this, building AI programs. And then, like Cliff, the question was, the use of electricity. And as you mentioned, my understanding was that's for the AI owners, I guess is what you would call it, the companies that are putting these programs out. What is, how is DeepSeek different if it is? And I guess, is it something we should trust?
So, anything that's tech, I guess any kind of conversation that's tech driven is relevant right now. And maybe by the time we post this podcast, things are different because everything moves so quick. But as of today, DeepSeek is really shaking up the AI world. I think they had, I think it was one of the headlining articles on CNN.com this morning. It's a very young startup company based out of China, as you know. It's a little over a year old, I think, and it's a Chinese AI company that develops open source models. So um, anyone can use it, but it's not just researchers. It's also open source for commercial purposes. So, going back to those, you know, I was saying a couple of minutes ago that custom development costs can be quite significant. So when DeepSeek says, oh, we're making it free for commercial purposes, that's a game changer. Um, Also, it's notable because DeepSeek is based on reasoning. So it doesn't just spit out an answer for you, it responds to a question or it solves a problem by thinking it through in steps. So, it thinks in, step one, therefore step two, and then this goes after. So it's a lot more logical, I guess is the word to use. Um, and their tools are set to be comparable to what we have here in the US, OpenAI, but free slash at a lower cost, a much lower cost. I think the CNN article this morning said something like it was 97% cheaper than OpenAI.
Wow.
And here in the US, we're a little worried about it because it's not a US based platform. So that brings security concerns. When our data is being held in servers that are based in China, that raises fears, that some other government can access our sensitive information. Um, there's also a fear that this app could be used for espionage, and this app could be used to influence our public opinion. And those are fears that are not unique to just DeepSeek. I think we have these fears towards any platform that is, foreign based, where they keep all of our data on their servers, right? And they have access to our headspace and our minds, and they can influence us.
Well, I guess
I
two.
think we also have
Oh, go ahead.
concerns about the ones that are from the United States doing those kind of things as well. I mean, I'm wondering if some of these products learn from us and then use that. I'm sure they learn from us and they use that information they gain by learning from us to help others. And so it has me a little concerned. Cliff, I know you wanted to jump in.
No, I guess there were a couple of things. I think the first was this cloud thing. A lot of people think everything is in the cloud, but Jenny's absolutely right. It's just not on your computer; it's on somebody else's computer someplace. It's not just floating around in the air. Somebody has that information. But I think what was for me most fascinating was the fact that supposedly these what was it is it Nvidia or whatever that made these really high-tech chips and stuff like that. I think the government had an embargo against them going to foreign countries, particularly China. And I think China may have an embargo that they didn't want to let them into China. So in any event, this deep seek stuff was all developed apparently without the world's most sophisticated AI chips and at a whole lot less money. So I think that's what I think the world finds pretty fascinating that they did it in millions of dollars, and in the United States, this stuff costs billions of dollars. So huge difference.
Jenny, you want to comment on that before we go to halftime, Jenny?
No, I think what you just said, Cliff, is spot on. I think we were trying to limit their resources, and with the building blocks that they they used to put this together, and they figured out a way to do it anyway with a lot less money. And I think that also kind of removes us from the world platform as being the leaders in AI. Or at least, maybe not remove us, but challenges our position as the leaders of AI.
All right, let's go to halftime. We want to thank our sponsors. We'll be back with the second half of our very interesting interview with Jenny Andrawis. Our association sponsors are the Environmental Information Association. EIA's multidisciplinary membership collects, generates, and disseminates information concerning environmental and occupational health hazards in the built environment at eia-usa.org. The IICRC, a nonprofit standards development and certifying body for the cleaning and restoration industry, iicrc.org. The Restoration Industry Association, the oldest and largest nonprofit professional trade association dedicated to providing leadership and promoting best practices through advocacy, standards, and professional qualifications for the restoration industry at restorationindustry.org. Industry sponsors are Particles Plus, feature-rich particle counters and air quality instrumentation. Count on us, particlesplus.com. BioPlanet at byoplanet.com, improving human, animal, and environmental health with electrostatic spray technology and advanced chemistries at byoplanet.com. Tramex Meters, innovation in moisture detection and humidity monitoring systems since 1974 at tramexmeters.com. All right, we're back with the second half of our interview. We've got Jenny Andrawis from Implement 4. Jenny, I'm curious. Okay, this stuff's going up to the cloud, right? And it's going to some company, whether it's DeepSeek or ChatGTP or whoever. How do we protect our information and our customers' and clients' information when we're using AI?
That's a good question. I oftentimes ask that myself, Joe.
Okay.
I think, from a user standpoint, I'm always very careful where I'm sharing my information. And that is as it relates to my home address, my credit card info, social security numbers, etc. Also very careful as to what I'm allowing my devices to do or not do in terms of tracking location, in terms of listening. A lot of these, Google devices and Alexas and such, they are you can allow them to listen or turn off that listening feature. Oftentimes our phones are listening. You talk about taking a vacation to Hawaii and you power up your Facebook. Lo and behold, there's an amazing deal on a Hawaii
Yeah.
trip. So I think kind of looking at those contracts, the 5 screens long where you say, yep, I agree. I just want to download this app. Take a minute to look at those. I don't know. Sometimes we're agreeing to things that we're not really aware of. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to become harder and harder for us to really understand how our data is being used. So I think that that's an ongoing challenge and an ongoing conversation, but definitely encourage everyone to read those contracts that come with the apps that we download on the app stores. We could be giving them access, the app developer, giving them access to things that we're not really aware of. What is better than the other? I can't really answer that, Joe.
Okay. That's the one thing that kind of worries me about AI. And I've played with Chat GTP. I put in some questions and I'm thinking to myself, all right, where is this going and who is getting it, And that I think, but you do bring up a really important point. I never read those things and I have to start, if I'm going to use this, I got to read the 5, 10 pages of stuff that they're going to do with my information. Cliff, did you want
Yeah.
to jump in?
Well, no, it's not just AI. I mean, every day, like
Yep.
you get these solicitations, and it says, uh, your Lowe's membership is, has expired, or your Sam's Club membership has expired. It's time to renew it, and it hasn't expired, but it's someone hacking and just trying to get information. I mean, I had this horrible experience with American Express. I mean, the call came as the fraud department. They essentially called me. We're the fraud department. Did you spend $3,500 this morning at Home Depot and then $2,500 at Best Buy, neither of which were true? And then they had an $18 expense that I donated to a charity. It was $18. And I did that. That wasn't $18 donation to a charity. And based upon that, they had some access to my information, and then they're just really, really good at it. And, before I got off the phone with them, they were wiring money, and it was just absolutely horrible, unbelievable. And that I don't even know that that was AI based.
Yeah, that just sounds like a terrible scam that you fell victim to. Think about, we're talking about giving these platforms and tools access to our data. We're also giving them access to our homes. Think of smart home integrations, right?
Right.
You have the Alexa, you have the Nest, you have, all the devices that turn the lights off and turn them on, turn your oven off and on, open your garage doors. And so we really have to be a lot more mindful as to what are we allowing into our homes and how could that potentially affect our homes or our safety or our security. Um, but from a marketing standpoint, I think of these things and, you know, I think of what this could mean for the future of restoration and remediation, right? So, the smart home systems, well, they're equipped with sensors
Right.
oftentimes. So they can sense if there's a fire, if there's a flood, if you have high levels of carbon monoxide in your home from like a carbon monoxide leak. And all this stuff is real time. So, how cool would it be if we can somehow connect that to restoration companies and first responders? Because then that allows for a faster response time by the restoration company, by first responders. And potentially it minimizes the loss of damage to your facility. And more importantly, minimizes the potential loss of life, whether it's human or pets or whatever. So, as a marketer, I'm always thinking, yes, we've allowed technology into our homes, but what's the upside of this? And I think that's one upside. Another upside is these home devices, they're always collecting data, and so the data that's collected from these smart home devices is temperature, it's how much energy we use throughout our homes, humidity levels, et cetera. And so that data that they're collecting can really provide valuable insights to the extent of a damage that a restoration company can then use and know more accurately where, this home has an ongoing mold problem because the data from this smart home device says the humidity level is at X. So I think we can use them to our advantage oftentimes. Um, Also, I think it's in Japan that they have connected, and I forget the name of the insurance giant in Japan, but they've connected this insurance company to Japanese smart home systems. So they are remote monitoring your home. And then they can identify a potential emergency before it happens. And then if one happens, then they can assess it. And not just that, they send an alert to the insurance agency. So the insurance, the property owner and the insurance agent are automatically in communication and then pulling in the restoration provider. So I think, there are positive ways that technology being let into our homes can help us. We just have to be very mindful as to, how we use this technology. And Cliff, to your point, there are people out there that will want to use that same technology for nefarious reasons and to cause harm and to cause damage and to cause chaos. So, we always kind of have to balance, well, yeah, technology can do some great things for us, but in the wrong hands, it can absolutely do the opposite.
Well, we just, got off this negative thing. How about a positive thing? Why don't you tell us a success story or two, of Implement 4, working with clients and making a difference in their business and, how you changed it and so on and so forth. Do you have anything interesting that you'd like to tell our audience about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Are we still thinking of like on an AI type of case study?
If you want, yeah, sure.
So there is a client that I personally work with where they wanted to branch out and start offering restoration and remediation services to healthcare facilities. As you guys know, responding to healthcare facilities is unlike responding to any other type of facility. There are specific guidelines that restoration providers must follow. There's, certain training. The inhabitants of healthcare facilities are immunodeficient. So there's a lot of risk factors within those types of facilities. So I worked with a client where we used technology in a sense where we used VR training, which is virtual reality training.
Mhm.
And we put together a video of what a restoration, or let me rephrase, a proper restoration containment looks like and should look like. And we walked the video through, there was a loss in a hospital in the OR department. This is how we came in as a restoration company. This is how we built containment. We're mindful of these factors. This is the ICRA assessment. We're following Joint Commission standards. We're following OSHA. Our team members are HAZWOPers, and this is why. And we used VR technology to kind of walk them through that. And so it was very well received. They had never seen anything like it, and it was a very cool factor. We actually were highlighting this technology at a trade show, a national trade show that was geared to healthcare engineers. And so when the healthcare engineers came to our booth, They sat down in this really cool looking couch, and we gave them the VR goggles. They put those on, and they got to walk through a site of, a healthcare job, job site. And VR is a really cool tool. It's not very expensive. We just applied it in a creative way. And I think that was kind of the wow factor is like, oh, that's kind of cool. Um, but VR could be used to train restoration crews as well, in realistic scenarios. And they're already using that actually in the Department of Homeland Security, where they're using VR. The hardware has improved, those goggles have improved dramatically. The environments that you create now are hyper realistic. You think you're in a real world type scenario. They integrate better with other technologies, so you can download these videos, you can upload different elements into the scenarios. Um, and you're giving people like a hands-on training in a risk-free environment, which is super important, for our teams because we are, we're in risky type of environments, due to weather-related losses or human man-made disasters. And so virtual reality presents a way for us to put our teams there without putting them in harm's way.
Jenny, let me just I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, and I just want to make sure I understand this and our audience understands it. So this DeepSeek is open source. That means I think people can look at the coding behind it is and then they can adapt that for their own purposes. Does that sort of
Yeah,
explain what you mean
they're
by that?
not, so they're not looking at the coding behind it. They use the coding to create a process or a platform for their own. So they're using their building blocks to create their own environment. Um, I was reading an article earlier this week, Joe, about DeepSeek being the number one downloaded app here in the US. And I think that was also kind of part of the alarm as to, oh my gosh, this is in everyone's hands at this point, right?
Yeah,
But it was being downloaded and adopted very quickly here in the US.
very interesting. Very interesting. I had one other. Um, well, let's do this. Let's go to the roundup, Grayson, and that way it gives me a second to to check my notes here. I know I had one more question on that topic. All right, Tramex Meters. Thank you, Tramex Meters, Innovation in Moisture Detection, for sponsoring our roundup. I know what the question was now, Jenny. Are there any other open source? Is it DeepSeek the only one, or are there other ones in the US?
No, there's many. There are many open source AI platforms, and depending on what you are hoping to build or what you're trying to achieve, determines where you're going. But yeah, definitely there is competition. If that's what you're asking, there are multiple different sources.
Okay. And let's go on to other types of technology. It was so interesting talking to you about AI that we've kind of gone pretty far into that. And now I'd like to, if you would, maybe give us your thoughts on, you see people doing this marketing, you're working closely with these restoration companies. What other type of technology are you seeing that's actually helping these restoration companies be more efficient and, make more money? That's what they're out there for, right?
Yeah, I think using it to optimize resources, like we were talking about earlier, I think is really helping them respond quicker and more efficiently. I think using these tools to improve customer service is vital because, if some facility owner or manager is suffering a loss, they want to they want to get your attention right away. And if they don't, they're going to hang up and call the next guy. So improved customer service really matters, and technology is being used for that. Um, Also, predictive analysis of like the weather and weather patterns, historical data, size of loss, type of loss, to kind of help us as a restoration industry prepare better, I think is huge. Um, and, you know, virtual reality, I think, is very affordable and a creative way to help train our teams. Figuring out how do we tap into these smart home integration systems that already exist, I think is also a way that companies can benefit. Um, there is a company out there called VRSE Builder, and there's another one called Luminous XP. Those two help create training for our restoration teams so that a restoration company can build safety SOPs. Um, and again, they create immersive learning experiences in for very high risk situations without putting our teams in risk. Um, and both of those companies provide demos. I would encourage you guys to check them out. Um, Also, Constant Contact, as it relates to marketing, has amazing AI and tech-driven tools that help you get to the right audience. Um, you can now pair up Constant Contact with your social media channels. So think of your LinkedIn platform, your Twitter or X, your Meta or Facebook, um, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. You can now braid them all into one messaging, by using one singular tool. So, um, you know, very helpful. You no longer need a marketing team of five, because now you can do quite well the marketing team of, less people and more tech tools. It takes that repetitive work out of it. So your human talent can put the strategy together, and then your AI talent, your technology talent is actually carrying out those repetitive tasks. So, I think there's a lot of room for our restoration contractors to start using some of these tools.
And this is built into the base Constant Contact. Like, do I have to buy another level to get integration with my social media?
No, this is built into DocuSketch. We all use DocuSketch in the industry. DocuSketch is starting to use AI. Constant Contact is starting to use AI. Xactimate is starting to use AI. Um, these companies have to start bringing AI into their environments to stay relevant. If they don't do that, they're going to be phased out of the marketplace and lose a great deal of market share in doing so. I remember my first job as a marketing director for a regional restoration company. I had this massive sign in my office, and it was innovate or stagnate. And it was my belief is if you don't find the next great thing and ride that wave, you become obsolete, in no time. And so as a marketer, we're always trying to stay on top of trends, and technology trends. And I think as restoration professionals as well, it's going to serve us well to stay on top of these tech trends.
So that DocuSketch, I'm a little familiar with that. I do some construction work, and now that's AI enabled or AI.
Definitely, yeah, they are bringing AI capabilities to DocuSketch.
Okay.
I saw something really cool the other day. I was working with someone in operations in a restoration company, and they were showing there was a loss in someone's kitchen. It was a residential loss, and they were enabling some sort of tool within DocuSketch where DocuSketch can say, oh, this is this type of cove base, this is this kind of cabinetry. Like it's understanding the parts that were affected in the kitchen. You know, this is this type of tile. And it took it a step further where it said, this tile is available at Lowe's and Home Depot and da, da, da. This cove base costs, you know, this much, you know, a square foot, and you can buy it at these providers. So it speeds up the process tremendously. And I think it also it limits error, you know, human error, and it's some really cool stuff. And so for our restoration professionals to start using these tools, I think it brings us into, you know, into these times where everyone else is also relying on technology.
You know, I wonder, it seems to me that in the restoration, this is a very hands-on, personnel intense industry. And from what the last hour we've talked about, it doesn't sound to me like AI is going to eliminate many of those people. Does that does that seem correct to you?
Yeah, that seems correct to me. I think AI is, you know, going to take care of the mundane part of our job, the maybe, you know, helping us out with the mathematical equations that kind of happen in the background, the estimating, the sourcing of product. But I don't think it's going to, you know, we're not going to roll a robot, an AI water technician into the space, right? We're not going to
Not
have
yet,
an
anyway.
AI hazmapper come in to help with the waste, the hazmat waste. Um, I remember seeing a billboard, Joe, and it was like the coolest thing ever. There was a billboard on the side of this massive building, and it was this guy painting the building, and it just had one phrase, and it said, "Can your AI do this?" And it was a guy actually standing there painting, and it was like the coolest thing because I think a lot of us fear that, oh, AI is going to come for my job, right? And I think, you know, we can rely on it to help make us better at our jobs, but I don't think that, you know, I don't know. I don't believe in that sci-fi movie where the world is taken over by AIs and you know they're doing everything and we're just kind of obsolete. I don't know. I'm not a firm believer of that.
All right, I've got one more question, but I want to get it over to Cliff first. Cliff, do you have any final questions?
Yeah, but I forgot what it is.
Well,
Oh,
let
no,
me
no,
do.
no, 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 I just remembered. Oh, Jenny, can you do me a favor? Can you repeat the names of those two, I guess platforms or whatever for building the training courses? I thought you said one was URSE or something, and then the other one was what, Luminex or something. Can you just,
Yeah, the first one is Luminous, Luminous.
and
You're testing
Luminous.
my spelling ability.
Okay, got it.
And then the other one is VRSE Builder.
Okay,
Um,
VRS. Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
yeah, VRSE Builder. And they create
The virtual reality.
platforms, yeah, to train on like safety, SOPs and such.
Good, thank you.
All
That
right.
was my
Now,
question.
with this whole AI thing, Jenny, one of the things I've found using just ChatGTP, just a real basic one, is you've really got to review the output because it makes mistakes, just like humans make mistakes, AI makes mistakes. Can you comment on that and what type
Yeah.
of things we should be looking out for that AI makes mistakes on?
Absolutely. Uh, there's something really interesting. There is a new job created. So with the use of AI, we're going to see that there are new jobs now in the job market.
Okay.
There is such a thing as a search I think it's called a search engineer, uh, or a prompt engineer, something along those lines. But it's basically someone that knows how to ask the question to AI so that they can get the right answer out. And it's like it's a whole job function, which I find to be quite amazing. Um, but in marketing, oftentimes, Joe, will have a really bad case of writer's block. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to write about, for my next blog post, or I don't know how to start talking about, you know, restoring facilities or, post hurricane or and I don't know like how to get started. It's just that initial launch. And so I'll go into I use Gemini often, and I'll go into Gemini and say, you know I'll give it a prompt, and oftentimes it's how I ask the prompt will dictate whether my Gemini response is on point or off base. um, and so it's almost like we also need to know how to communicate with AI, right? Like we have some level of ownness to know how to ask it so it knows to spit back, the right answer. And so to your point, Joe, oftentimes, if I ask it for a prompt, tell me about how AI can optimize resource allocation in the restoration industry, right? And then Gemini is off and it's boop, 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 boop. I'm a restoration expert, and I know to then sift through that answer to say, this is correct. This is no, and this is not, I understand my niche industry more than Gemini understands my niche industry. And so uh, there's always a need for a second pair of human eyes to kind of read through the outcome and make sure that, to qualify, that it's correct and on point.
Wow, I just came up with like three more questions based on that. But do you have a minute or do you have to run?
I have a minute.
Okay. Gemini, is that similar to ChatGPT? Is that a free one?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
Gemini is, I believe, the Google powered one. And Gemini, I think they just rolled out Gemini 2.0. Again, I'm not an IT expert, but Gemini is great at content creation, and especially written content. Gemini is a great one.
Okay.
Um, as it relates to graphic creation. I don't know if you saw this morning, I was promoting this podcast on my LinkedIn,
Okay.
and simple tools like Canva that a lot of us marketers use. Um,
What was that called again?
Canva, Canva. Canva is now using AI. And so I went into Canva and I said, create a picture of me on a podcast with headphones. And I hit enter, and it spat out this image of me sitting in this really cool environment with headphones, just like Cliff, doing a podcast. I'm like, this is pretty fun. And so I posted that on my LinkedIn. You could probably check it out later. But so yeah, definitely Gemini is great for written content. And there are other tools for graphical content that's AI generated. Canva has one. Um, Facebook is starting to play with that, or Meta. There's a Meta AI graphics tool where you can type in, um, uh, create an image of a flooded hotel lobby, and it knows to do that. Now,
Wow.
being the restoration expert, you can look in that image and see if there are things that don't look right, Um, like sometimes, for example, if I was to give it the prompt, create a restoration um, professional drying up a flood in a hotel lobby. So they'll show a restoration professional, but they're dressed like a construction person, or they're using the wrong kind of equipment. So as a human, I know, okay, that doesn't look like real life scenario. And so I know then to ask it differently, you know. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of onus on us to know how to drive AI to get the right response.
All right. Before we go, I could talk about this for another hour, I think, Jenny. You've done a great job, and I appreciate you joining us. Can you first give the Implement 4 website, and that way folks can contact you through there, I guess, if they're interested in your
Um,
services?
Absolutely, I would love to. Our website is simple, implement the number 4.com. And we are here to help you with any marketing or sales strategy you may need, any kinds of operational strategy that you may need help with, or if you're just looking for solid talent. Between my partners and I, we have a massive network of amazing restoration, remediation, and decontamination talent in the US. And we are able to connect those dots. So, yeah, we're here to help. We focus on restoration. That's the industry we thrive in. And yeah, we're available for any other questions.
And if there's anything we missed that you'd like to add, or any last thoughts you'd like to add?
No, I think this was a ton of fun. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Joe and Z-Man and Gary behind the scenes. Sorry, Grayson behind the scenes.
Yep.
So yeah, this was a big pleasure, and I would love to dive into some more marketing thoughts as it relates to social media because I think I'm really enjoying seeing how restoration companies are starting to use Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok a little bit, and I think that would be great conversation for the next time.
We look forward to it, and we appreciate you joining us here today. This was very interesting. I want to thank today's guest, Jenny Andrawis from Implement 4, implement4.com. My co-host, Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick, Grayson, Gone Fishing Fisher at the controls. Most importantly, our growing loyal audience and sponsors. Next week, is it next week? We have, oh yeah, we're going to talk with Delphine Farmer next week, Dr. Farmer. From the University of Colorado, we're going to talk about the Los Angeles wildfires and recovery and wildfire recovery in general. So please come back and join us next Friday at noon for the next episode of IAQ Radio Plus.
AQ Radio, I'm Spike Reel saying thanks for listening.